I was having a conversation last week, just before the holidays, actually, with somebody, and this discussion started to get a little heated, we could say, and voices started to rise a little bit on both sides of the coin, both me and the other person. And all of a sudden, I realized that both of us were guilty of simply trying to convince the other person that we were right. I realized that I wasn't actually listening to the arguments that this person was presenting to me. I was more married to the whole thing that I was going to convince this person that my opinion was the right one, and to outline all of the reasons that that was true. I ended up apologizing to this person because it was like, once that kind of smacked me in the face, I was like, wow, this is not cool. Like, I don't want to be that person. So I did end up apologizing to them. Uh, their response was very interesting, but that's a different story.
Yeah,
Um,
because I want to know whether they apologize to you.
no, they actually just said, I'm glad that you see that I'm right. I
I
was
knew
like,
that one was coming. I
I
knew
was
that
like,
was
okay,
coming.
that's fine. But it makes me, I really realized in that moment after that whole little thing had happened. It didn't take very long, maybe 5 minutes, but um, like, how often are we in situations like that where we are talking to somebody and that person really isn't listening to what it is that we are saying? They're not willing to hold space for another opinion. They simply want to be correct in and convince you that they are correct in whatever the topic is that's being laid out. And I find that really true when you have polarized views. If somebody has I mean, you see this in politics all the time, but we'll leave politics off the table. I mean, you like during the pandemic, I mean, that was so, the whole vaccination,
Hmm.
non-vaccination thing. That was, very polarizing. And it was for a lot of families. And people really believed, whether they were on one side of the camp or the other, that they were right. And they were right for them. Like, it was
Right.
whatever their opinion was the right opinion for them. But it doesn't mean that you can't hold space for that other person's opinion. And that other person actually might have the ability to share something with you that you might not have looked at before. An aspect of the discussion that, or the topic that maybe you just hadn't thought of before, to make you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I can see why you think that way, instead of making it about being wrong or right. Have you guys ever been in conversations like that?
Only a few thousand. And yes, and it is to you what you say. There is, um, and I find for myself, it depends on who I'm having that interaction with.
Hmm.
There are some people where I'm probably a little bit more, I don't even want to use the word forceful, and I'm not disrespectful because I don't want to be disrespected, but where I might voice my opinion a little bit more. Or if I'm up against somebody who always has to have their point of view be the right point of view, to me, there are some times where I just think it's just not worth it. It's
Hmm.
just not worth it. And I do have a friendship where we do not, I'm not going into it, but that political side, we're polar opposites when it comes to politics. And there was one aspect that we were very um like, and she's like, I just can't understand your point of view. And I said, it comes down to this simple. reasoning. If you can explain this to me, I'll be open to hear more about what you have to say. And when I gave it to her, she looked at me and she said, I actually never thought of it from that point of view.
Mhm.
And it wasn't anything earth shattering. It wasn't any,
Mhm. Mhm.
wasn't world like, it wasn't going to solve hunger and it wasn't going to stop wars. But it was just, and she was just like so adamant on these certain things. And I was like, it's just this one simple question that no one can answer for me. And she went, that question's a really good question. I could see why you don't agree with my point of view because I can't answer that question. It didn't change her point of view, it didn't change my point of view. But we came to a point where she's like, I can understand why you have your point of view.
Mhm.
And I understood her point of view. And it's not a topic we talk about. And you know what? There's 72 other million topics we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so important though, the ability to communicate that. I mean, because let's face it, communication is the end all be all because we need to communicate properly isn't really the right word, but we need to be able to communicate effectively to allow for people to feel safe in their ability to express themselves, and also to keep ourselves safe in a conversation to be able to say, um, I respect what you're saying, but I don't want to have this conversation any longer.
Mhm.
We need to bow out of this at this point. And for that space to be respected as well. What about
Yeah.
you, Tracy? Have you been in those kinds of conversations?
Oh, I've been that person.
Come join me on my camp.
Oh yeah, I'd be that where and I really think about why and it was a I need to be right in this. And then you have to now with all my wisdom with you women is looking and you go, what's the real reason? Because it's not it can be about the topic. I'm not gonna say it isn't,
No.
but usually there's an underlying reason where it's I need validation, I need like my voice heard, whatever you want. And I really took a step back because it's why are you arguing over this? Like why do you have to get this person on your side of the camp, whatever it is? Why can't they have their thoughts and opinions? So yeah, I've been on that side. And I've also been where, I see it where that person's doing it to me. Um,
Mm,
I think now it's because it's so much more commonplace. It's almost, I don't want to say being taught, but it now seems to be just the norm.
Yeah.
What are you, boots in the ground? Like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I can't remember the saying where you just
Well, there's for us, it's like you draw the line in the sand, like this is how
yeah,
it is,
and
and
it's
blah,
just
blah,
this is the way it is, and I don't know, like I'm a
yeah.
lifelong learner, so I want to hear things from you that maybe I don't agree with, but can broaden my aspect on life.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I think I think, but I do think it was so funny. I know we did, and I think because social media or the internet, everything is so like right in your face in a moment with no delays that we get all this noise thrown at us. And then you have these, I think the aspect of reporting the news has changed so dramatically that it has just like, I don't want to say it's clouded people's abilities, I think sometimes, and sometimes even my own. I'm going to take ownership of that, of thinking of, well, it's okay if we don't agree. It's okay if I could understand where that person's coming from. And just because I agree with that person on that aspect of that topic doesn't mean I've left everything else that I believe in the dust. I think that's where we are, like, I think we started this at the beginning of this conversation. It's become so polarized.
Mm-hmm. Conversations I find today, and I think it is because of social media, are, let's say, allowed to be very adversarial. Like we're not in that, like I know growing up for me, before social media was even around, the internet was around, people didn't talk to people the way people talk to people now.
Mhm.
Like the amount of bullying, the ability to like people are just uh so much more disrespectful of another person's opinion, another person's point of view. And I think like social media has allowed for that to happen, right? Because you can make all the comments you want. It's not like you're sitting in front of that person having a conversation,
No,
right?
no,
And it's easy to do that when it's just, your phone,
And
right?
right.
there's no backup to the disagreement
Yeah.
either on social media. It's just like you said something, you posted something, and then I come back and go, "Oh, you're stupid,"
Yeah,
and
you're
that's
an
it.
idiot.
And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's just like there's nothing there. There's no conversation.
right.
No.
No,
No.
no. So I think, yeah, I think it's all just like really changed, just like you said. It's all changed, like everything. Like, and I do remember growing up, um, there being political arguments, but they didn't happen like they happen now. They were
Yeah.
around the holidays because that's when all the difference of the families got together. The
Hmm.
rest of the time, there wasn't anything because you didn't really talk about it, like, you know, and I actually watched my stepfather lose friendships because he just spoke his mind, and if you didn't believe it, you were an idiot.
Wow.
And so I'm like, nah,
So on one
you
hand,
know,
talk about, voice your opinion in that. And then the other
yeah,
hand, you better watch who you do that around because they'll try to take you down because it's not
yeah.
something they agree. Very hard world.
It
Yes.
is a very
Yeah.
hard word. And here's the way I approach it, right, wrong, or indifferent. This is what keeps me sane, is how important is it for me to get into that argument with that person? Is that person that important that I have to um is what our disagreement about that important that we I have to be right about it. You know what I'm trying to say? And if it's something that's that detrimental, then I have to look at what that relationship is with that person instead of I always have to be right.
I think it can be really valuable to ask to be heard and
Hmm.
actually wait for the answer. To ask if somebody is ready to have that discussion, have a difficult conversation,
Right.
and let them say, no, I can't. Like it's my way or the highway, so I can't have this discussion with you. And that keeps the boundaries in your court. You've asked to be heard, they've told you no, and it's like, okay, great, that's fine. I don't need to have that conversation.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's an age thing too, as we grow wiser,
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
go, do we need to put our energy into this? And again, it all started off, they don't want your opinion. They don't want you to try to open up their mind. So why put that type of energy? Why I don't, like you said, Michelle, I don't have to be right. I could just say that's an interesting point, move on and
Hmm.
talk about
Right.
something else.
Yeah.
Right. And that was a good way of putting it, Tracy G. Is it the right energy? Like we're like, yeah.
But it's also interesting because I would think the majority of people I surround myself with nowadays would listen to my opinion. And I think in my younger years, I probably was more people pleasing, that I would surround myself with people for different reasons. And so, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I had that same thought process.
Yeah.
I think I think that's the exact same thing. So what about you, viewer? How do you handle that? This type of conversation? Do you struggle with it? Are you comfortable with it? Put it in the comments. Let us know what you think about it. Share this with somebody that you think this might help them through. And if you like this episode, make sure you hit like. If you want to know when our next episode is, make sure you hit notifications and please hit that subscribe button. Until next time.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.